Number 1. The joining of a people who, with the consent and approbation, nay, by the commandment and authority of their magistrates, had covenanted with the Lord not to join with his enemies. Number 2. That it was when the rule of constituting the army was corrupt, that is, the public resolutions which made the case desperate and left no place or remedy for purging the army. Number 3. That it was when a party of malignants who had the sway of councils and actings were brought to the army, who, being added to the former, not only made the purging of the army in an ordinary way impossible, but also carried the stream and current of all their resolutions and actings into a malignant channel. That they were the prevailing party is more manifest than that time needs to be spent in verifying thereof. Number 4. That they were carrying on a malignant interest, that is, the establishing the king in the exercise of his power in Scotland, and the reinvesting him with the government in England, when he had not yet abandoned his former enmity to the work and people of God, and the securing of power in their own hands under him. And though none of these 4 had concurred, all which we believe will be acknowledged by unbiased men, yet there was a sin in the people's joining, because few or none of these who joined gave any testimony against the magistrates employing of the malignant party, but went willingly after the commandment. Hosea 5, verse 11. Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment, because he willingly obeyed and went after the commandment. It is acknowledged to have been the people's duty, even by these who justify their joining with them upon the command of the magistrate, to have bemoaned it before the Lord, and in their stations to have testified against it before men. Step 9. The 9th step is the prelimiting and corrupting of the General Assembly in regard of the free and right constitution thereof. General Assemblies rightly constituted in their liberties and freedom, as they are one of the most precious ordinances of Jesus Christ, so they have been most wholesome and profitable means in this kirk for the purging and preserving all the ordinances of Christ in the land. And therefore, as it hath been the care of all the faithful servants of God in the land to vindicate and preserve their right constitution and due liberty and freedom, so in the promoting of any course of defection hath Satan always studied to entrench thereupon and to corrupt the same. That the General Assembly was prelimited this year is evident by the letter written by the Commission of the General Assembly to the presbyteries, with an act sent therewith, appointing that all these who remained unsatisfied in the public resolutions after conference, and continued to oppose the same, should be cited to the General Assembly, which letter and act had such influence on many presbyteries, that though there were in them many able and faithful men who were unsatisfied with the public resolutions, yet very few of these were chosen to be commissioners. And where any such persons were elected, there was for the most part either protestations against it, or else another election of other persons, by which it came to pass that almost all these were incapacitated to sit in the assembly, and the meeting was almost wholly made up only of these who had been instrumental in carrying on the former defection, or were consenting thereto, and were approving thereof. A more gross prelimitation than this could not readily be, that men entrusted by the General Assembly with the public affairs and to preserve the liberty thereof should first, contrary to their trust, open a door for bringing in the malignant party, and then shut the door against the sitting of all these in the assembly, where their proceedings were to be tried, who did not before their coming there approve of their opening the door to the malignants, which was not only to make defection themselves, but to involve others therein, and to take away the remedy thereof. Beside this gross prelimitation, there was also divers other particulars of importance that fell out in the meeting itself, and the constitute members, in the liberty and freedom of voting, which were sent down at length in the protestation made at St. Andrews against that meeting, and the reasons afterwards penned for strengthening thereof. And therefore we shall not need in this place, to repeat these things, but recommend the reading of them to such as desire more fully to be informed in these particulars. It were tedious to fall on the acts of that assembly, and the warnings issued by them. These things we now leave as a subject requiring a more large and distinct consideration, desiring only this one thing to be pondered and considered, that besides their ratifying and approving the proceedings of the former commission, which were in many things the great grief of all the godly in the land, in such ample manner as even, in way of expression, is not free of some flattery and vanity, and besides the censuring of some honest men for no other thing but only protesting against them, and besides the emitting of warnings reflecting exceedingly on former pious and warrantable proceedings, they have laid a foundation for censuring all ministers and professors, and for keeping such out of the ministry, who do not approve of all these proceedings, which have this last year, so much vexed and grieved the godly, and so much rejoiced and made glad the malignant party and wicked of the land. And if these things shall be accordingly executed and take effect, what persecution shall there be of many godly ministers, elders, expectants, professors, and what a ministry and what a church shall we have in a few years? Article 10. The last head of the Lord's controversy that is mentioned is deep security and obstinacy, impenitency and incorrigibleness. Under all these, and under all the dreadful strokes of God, and tokens of his indignation against us because of the same, so that whilst he continues to smite, we are so far from humbling ourselves that we grow worse and worse, and sin more and more. And it is so with us, will not, we suppose, be denied by any godly man amongst us who knows and observes the land's condition and the present temper and carriage of the inhabitants, every man crying out almost for his affliction, but none almost mourning for his sin. We think it may be truly said that sin and iniquity of all kinds amongst all ranks of persons hath been more multiplied and increased in Scotland since the defeat at Dunbar than in many years before, and that this nation was not so dull, hard-hearted, and impenitent under any of the former rods wherewith the Lord did smite us these years past, as under these rods wherewith he now smites us. And that this doth much heighten our iniquity, and speak sad things to come, if not repented of, is evident from Isaiah 1 verse 5. Quote, Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart is faint. Unquote. Isaiah 9 verses 13 through 16. Quote, For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, root and branch, in one day. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed. Unquote. Jeremiah 5 verse 3, quote, O Lord, are not thine eyes upon the truth? Thou hast stricken them, but they have not grieved. Thou hast consumed them, but they have refused to receive correction. They have made their faces harder than rock, and have refused to return. Unquote. Jeremiah 8 verses 4 through 7, quote, Moreover thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord, Shall they fall and not arise? Shall they turn away and not return? Why then is this people of Jerusalem slidden back by a perpetual backsliding? They hold fast deceit, and refuse to return. I hearkened and heard, but they spake not aright. No man repented him of his wickedness, saying, What have I done? Every one turneth to his course, as the horse rusheth into the battle. Yea, the stork in the heaven knoweth her appointed times, and the turtle and the crane and the swallow observe the time of their coming. But my people know not the judgment of the Lord. Unquote. Isaiah 42, verses 23 through 25, quote, Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient to his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and he hath set him on fire round about. And yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. Unquote. Leviticus 26, verses 14 through 29, quote, But if you will not hearken to me, and will not do all these commandments, and if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul shall abhor my judgments, so that ye will not do all my commandments, but that ye break my covenant, I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of the heart. And ye shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when none pursueth you. And if you will not yet for all this hearken unto me, then I will punish you 7 times more for your sins, and I will break the pride of your power. I will make your and I will make your heaven as iron, and your earth as brass, and your strength shall be spent in vain. For your land shall not yield her increase, neither shall the tree of the land yield their fruits. And if ye walk contrary to me, and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. I will also send wild beasts among you, which shall rob you of your children, and destroy your cattle, and make you few in number, and your highways shall be desolate. And if you will not be reformed by these things, but will walk contrary to me, then will I also walk contrary unto you, and will punish you yet 7 times for your sins. I will bring a sword upon you, that shall avenge the quarrel of my covenant. And when you are gathered together within your cities, I will send the pestilence among you, and ye shall be delivered into the hand of the enemy. And when I have broken the staff of your bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, And they shall deliver you your bread again by weight, and ye shall eat and not be satisfied. And if you will not for all this hearken unto me, but walk contrary unto me, then I will walk contrary unto you also in fury, and I, even I, will chastise you 7 times for your sins. And ye shall eat the flesh of your sons, and the flesh of your daughters shall ye eat. I will destroy your high places, and cut down your images, and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you. And I will make your cities waste, and bring your sanctuaries unto desolation, and I will not smell the savour of your sweet odours. And I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which dwell therein shall be astonished at it. And I will scatter you among the heathen, and will draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. Then shall the land enjoy her Sabbaths as long as it lieth desolate, and ye be in your enemy's land. Even then shall the land rest and enjoy her Sabbaths. As long as it lieth desolate, it shall rest, because it did not rest in your Sabbaths when ye dwelt upon it. And upon them that are left alive of you I will send a faintness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a shaken leaf shall chase them, and they shall flee as fleeing from a sword. And they shall fall when none pursueth them, and they shall fall one upon another, as if it were before a sword when none pursueth. And ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies, and ye shall perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands, and also in the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them." Unquote.